Good morning, everybody. My name is Stuart Reid, and it's my privilege to be principal here at the Royal Veterinary College and to welcome you here this morning. It's a particular welcome given that this is our 225th birthday at the RVC, and we've been on this site since 1791. So it's a great pleasure to be standing here welcoming you to a discussion about the future rather than about history. And before my president, Bradley, says anything about it, the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons came into existence because the RVC at the time had just reduced the length of the BVet Med course to 3 months.
You've stolen my thunder again.
And I'd just like to say that the RVC remains at the cutting edge of innovation in veterinary education. So, little did I think I or John Blackwell think when we launched at the London Vet Show the Vet Futures programme that we would end up with something as exciting as this morning. I really pay tribute to everybody that's worked so hard through the last 18 months that has brought us here today. I was fortunate enough to fill in one last time as Senior Vice President at a graduation ceremony on Saturday. And it was wonderful to see yet another cohort of young vets coming through. And when you look at them, you know that the future of the profession is indeed rosy. And as I said to them, the future is promised to nobody, so it's up to us to go and seize it, and nothing could be truer of what we set out to do this morning. So you're very welcome to the RVC. My colleagues and I will do our best to look after you. We will shepherd you around as best we can. You've had the fire alarm as an example. If there is another one, it will be a real one. And as I say, follow me either through the door there or the doors at the back and then outside and across onto the other side of Royal College Street. With that, unfortunately, one or two of us will not be here this afternoon, particularly those involved in the heads of schools meeting, the Veterinary Schools Council meeting in Edinburgh. So on behalf of the RVC, could I say thank you to everybody for coming today and for those involved in organising both internally and particularly to Lizzie and Sally who've put in so much work to bring us here today. And with that, Bradley.
Good morning, everyone. Yay! That's the spirit. I'm really, really excited today. I think today, we've got an amazing programme. It's a really exciting occasion. We're in a time of great change, perhaps greater change than many of us expected, but I think that makes it even the more vital that our professions, the veterinary profession and the allied veterinary nursing profession, actually have the leadership and the structures in place to make us fit to face the future. And that's what Vet Futures is all about. So it's really, really important and really, really topical at the moment. Before I say any more, though, I would like to thank Stuart for allowing us to use this wonderful facility. I have to say it has changed a bit since I was a student here, and this was literally the Great Hall where we did our exams. I came here in not 1791 quite, but 1973, and it's changed for the better, not just from 1791, but from 1973 as well. Okay, so what are we actually going to do today? Today is all about translating the report, which had 34 recommendations in it, into action. And today is all about action. This is where the action begins, because we are absolutely determined to make sure that Vet Futures isn't just a collection of well-intentions or good intentions, and I think it has been very well received as a report, but actually brings about change. It's all about translating good intention into change, and this is really where it all kicks off. And we really want you to join in. This is very much a collaborative venture. And there's two main things we want you to do today, apart from listening and contributing to the discussions. First of all, in your bag, you will have a Mind Matters notebook. And in the back of the Mind Matters notebook, you should have 7 stickers. And downstairs, it is downstairs, I lose my bearings, around here somewhere, in the light well, There are 4 boards, and you can choose to use any of them, it doesn't matter. And what we'd like you to do between now and the end of lunchtime is to stick your 7 stickers on the 7 of the 23 action plans that we've got. Prioritise the 7 that you think are most important. So it doesn't matter which board you use, but please join in with that so we can get a feel for what people feel are the most important priorities that we should be taking forwards from today. The other thing that we'd like you to do is use your phones. Usually when people pick up their mobile phones and start tapping on them during the course of a discussion, it's not a very good sign. People think you're being rather rude. We won't think that. We really want to create a ripple effect out of today. So again, in the light well, we've got some boards. You may have seen them during when you were there before we convened. Write your pledges on that board, write your support, write what you'd like to see happen, and take a photo downstairs. I posed with the polar bear. I thought it suited me. I tried to match his expression. But wherever you like, but tweet it out. We want a ripple effect from today, because there's a rather good saying that I heard not long ago, which says that if you want to go quickly, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And that's very much the theme of Vet Futures. It's collaborative. It's not something that the profession is going to have done to it. It's something that the profession as a whole is going to work together to achieve its various objectives. And we do already have some supportive quotes I'd just like to show you quickly from the CVO. From CVO for Wales, from the chair of our Veterinary Nursing Committee at the Council at the RCVS, from BVNA, from the Veterinary Defence Society, and from the Veterinary Schools Council. But I hope to see lots more pledges of support rippling out from today, so get those Twitter accounts going, Facebook, email, whatever it is you use to communicate with your own group of colleagues. So, just to fill you in on where we've got to up until now, as I hope you're aware, we had a Vet Futures group which did an awful amount of work all around the country, gathering information from focus groups, surveys, discussions and so on, in order to produce our report last November. And then we launched our action group. And we were absolutely overwhelmed that when we asked for people to join the action group, we had over 80 people join, or asked to join. Unfortunately, all 80 couldn't join. We only had 6 people dealing with each of the key themes and 2 or 3 other people dealing with specific aspects of Vet Futures. So, relatively small group, but what that group has been working really hard at doing is translating the 34 recommendations that were in the Vet Futures report into what has now panned out as 24 work streams, smart objectives, things that we actually want to achieve, things that we want to have specific stakeholders that buy into, things that we have specific objectives and time limitations on. So that's where we're heading at the moment. And today, we're not going to run through all 24. Rather than that, we're going to pick on a few of those themes. We're going to have people, I hope, stimulating that grey matter, getting you thinking about the issues, getting you thinking about what's important, and then from here, as I say, translating that into actually making things happen. I think that one of the great benefits that's come out of Vet Futures has been the fact that the profession has been speaking as one voice. It is in its own right a theme from the Vet Futures report, but I think the profession at large has seen the fact that the BVA and the Royal College have been working really closely together on this has in its own right been a benefit. There are times when we should be agreeing to differ about things because we do have different stakeholders, But at the end of the day, we're a small profession. And when we speak externally about these issues that are of common interest and common concern to all of us, it really is important that we speak together. So I'm really pleased to introduce next my colleague, my friend and president of the British Veterinary Association, Sean Wensley.
Thank you very much, Bradley. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today with the Vet Futures team, the Vet Futures Action Group, and all of you that have taken the trouble to come and turn your minds to the future of the vet and vet nursing professions for a day. Needless to say, I utterly share the excitement that Bradley's just expressed on behalf of us all. I'm also delighted to say that the Vet Nurse Futures Project is reporting today, and that Liz Cox, Chair of the RCVS Vet Nurse Council, and Sam Morgan, President of the British Veterinary Nursing Association, will present their vision for the future of the vet nursing profession. They compressed our 18-month project into 6 months, which kind of says everything I think we all know and understand about the super efficient qualities of veterinary nurses. Of course, the Brexit vote will have some bearing on the topics that we're going to discuss today, but it was just a plea, really, that we are fully cognizant of that and we acknowledge it, but we don't want today to be overly focused on it, not least because we don't have clarity and answers that all of us will be looking for over the coming months. But I think, as Bradley said, what a great time to be thinking about the future in a collective, joined-up way, because we're going to need that clarity to be able to present where we'd like our professions to go in light of that vote. BVA has already been in close contact with the Royal College, and we're going to be having ongoing close contact with other specialist associations and professional bodies to think about what the top issues are going to be and where we'd like to see them go. So you will have a chance to take part in the interactive elements of the day. We'd urge you all in the breaks to use the voting board that Bradley mentioned to vote for the actions that you feel are the most pressing priorities of those that we've laid out in the reports. We're looking forward to a lively day. You might notice we've squeezed in a fair few presentations. There's going to be a snappy speed dating type feel to it, I fear. And we may have time for a small number of questions at the end of each presentation, but let's, because of the volume that we want to get through, just manage expectations on that. So there'll certainly be time at the end to have a good discussion, and if we can, we'll have some questions at the end of each presentation. We're filming here today. Press are here, reporting as well. Please do use, as Bradley said, the options to tweet and share what you're hearing and thinking on Facebook, using the hashtags that are here, Vet Futures and VN Futures. And finally, you'll see that we've got an artist with us up at the back, Will, who's catching the flavour of the discussions and some of the key points made, and you'll be able to have a look at that as it evolves during the course of the day. So, it now is my very great pleasure to introduce our first speaker of the day, Jess French. Jess, I'm delighted to say, has just completed her veterinary degree. She's just qualified as a veterinary surgeon, which I think maybe deserves a round of applause. And I think we would all share the feeling that to be in the company of any of our young colleagues who, of course, are the real future of the profession is a great pleasure and delight. So she's just completed her veterinary degree at the University of Nottingham. She'd already achieved a first-class degree in zoology from University College London. She's a passionate zoologist, naturalist and conservationist. And in 2011, she won the Global Youth Leadership Award from the Jane Goodall Institute for her dedication to conservation education. Jess may be familiar to those of you with small children, as she's a presenter on CBeebies, fronting Mini Beast Adventures with Jess, as well as being a children's author. And she's joined us to kickstart our day, as I say, as one of the newest members of our profession. So, Jess, please.
Hello. Okay. So, as Sean said, I'm Jess. I've just recently only a few weeks ago, finished my exams at Nottingham. Haven't even graduated yet. My graduation's next week. And so I was really surprised when I was asked to speak today. Firstly, because my audience are normally significantly younger, and that's not a dig at anyone, because I mean they're like 4 and 5. So I was quite worried about that, because I couldn't just get by on some funny faces and star jumps to make you laugh. So I hope this is going to be my first sort of grown-up talk. So I feel like I'm going up in the world. And the other reason I was so worried and surprised that they asked me to do this talk was because at that point, when they asked me, I hadn't even had my exam results yet, and I was convinced that I wasn't even going to be a vet. So I was really surprised that they'd want someone like me to talk about the future of vets. And I think that just reflects that, like so many vets and vet students, I'm a complete perfectionist and absolutely full of self-doubt. For my whole degree, I've had a bit of imposter syndrome. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that means I feel like I've got to the place that I'm at because of a load of luck. Like, people haven't realised I've slipped through the net and I've managed to get where I am by some weird coincidence. And I spent the last 5 years of my life trying to convince myself and all of my lecturers that I did actually deserve to be there. And this is something that I've had my whole life. And I think, weirdly, this belief that I don't really get anywhere by skill but by luck has made me kind of gutsy in the things that I go for. And when I applied to vet school, I didn't think I had a very strong application, but I just thought, if you're lucky, you'll get in. And then I did. And then I suppose it was the same in my second year of uni when they said, a friend called me up and said, CBeebies are looking for someone who loves bugs and who's a girl. And I've definitely got that one. And I do really like bugs. And they said, just send in an audition video. And I thought, well, I don't know how to present, but I had enough luck to get into vet school, so maybe I'll have enough luck to get that. And weirdly, I did. And then again, I got to CBeebies, and on the first day of filming, I was so worried that I was going to be exposed as a fraud. I don't actually know as much about bugs as they think I do. I don't actually like kids as much as they think I do. And I definitely don't know how to present. So anyway, to my surprise, that all went fine, and I managed to present the series, and now it shows every single day on CBeebies, and probably will for the next 5 years. And the worst of all was when they asked me to sing the theme tune. So at the beginning, I'd said to them, I'll do whatever you want. I'll wear stupid clothes, which I did. I'll be an idiot, which I did. But I will not sing. I cannot sing. And please, please, please don't even try and make me sing the theme tune, because I cannot sing. And then 2 months later, I found myself in a studio with headphones on, the composer of the song desperately trying to find a key where I could hit most of the notes. But I've done it. I sang my own theme tune, and that was something I never, ever, ever thought I would do, because maybe thinking, but she can sing. I really can't sing. And yet I've still done that. So maybe anything was possible. And after that, I got approached, so after the show came out, I got approached by a publisher, and they said, would you like to write some kids' books? And I thought, never written a book before, but I'll follow that wave of luck that's brought me this far, and maybe I'll be able to do it. So I had a go, and the books got published, and I definitely wasn't an expert. I've never written a book before. There were loads of things that I would have changed, and I saw it next to other books, and I went into Waterstones and saw it, and it looked like a joke, seeing my little books that looked like a school project that someone had just put on the side, and everyone's real books were there. But now I'm on my 7th book deal, and nobody seems to have actually noticed that I'm an amateur, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm a fraud. And the book deals keep coming in, so maybe I am doing something right. And I'm gradually beginning to realise that maybe the only person that expects perfection from me is me. And maybe that is actually the way the world is. You don't have to be able to do something perfectly to be able to succeed at it. You just have to be willing to give it a shot. A couple of weeks ago, I watched a show, a TED Talk about bravery. And I started to wonder if what I had previously been calling luck was actually bravery, having the guts to be turned down, having the guts to go for something which you don't think you can do, but just to have a go at it. And I think definitely that applies to me now, having just graduated as a vet. I don't feel like I can be a vet. I think a lot of people feel like that when they graduate. And just even going for your first vet job, or any job really, definitely requires a certain degree of bravery, because you're going into something that you know you can't do perfectly, and yet you're a vet student, so you're probably a perfectionist, so that scares the hell out of you. And you have to be really brave and just say, do you know what, I'm going to go for this, and I'm going to give it my best shot. And what is the point in going for a job anyway that you can already do perfectly? How boring would that be if you went every single day and did something that you already knew how to do? The only way you're going to grow and improve and learn how to do new things is to start to do them and make some mistakes in the beginning, but eventually you will learn how to do them. Of course, in order to be able to take opportunities, we do need to be presented with them in the first place. And the fact that I just happened to be called up by a friend who knew that they needed a person on CBeebies who liked kids and knew about bugs wasn't really luck. It was because 4 years previously, I'd gone up to someone after a talk, a cameraman from the BBC, and begged him and pestered him to give me work experience. And so he got to know me, and he knew what my aspirations were, he knew what my interests were. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, you can create your own opportunities by telling people what you want to do, by moving in the direction you want to be in. Don't be afraid to tell people what your dreams are and what you'd like to do, because I did that and I felt embarrassed and I felt stupid, but you never know who's listening and what opportunities they may give to you at a later date. And it might take years before that groundwork leads to an opportunity, but that's great because it gives loads of time for you to prepare so that when the opportunity comes, you'll be ready. The opportunities will come, don't doubt that. But when they do, you need to be ready for them, and you need to be brave.
Thank you very much. Yes, that was a truly inspirational speech, and one that I know resonated with many of us. I'm afraid to say your luck has run out, though, because next week, believe it or not, Nottingham and the RBC have their graduations on the same day, and it was a toss of the coin as to which of the presidents you'd get to come and give you your graduation, or to do the oath with you and admit you into college. And I'm afraid to say you've got me, which means that you'll have to sit through my attempt at trying to give you an inspirational speech about what my 38 years of experience in practice have taught me. Apologies in advance. So, on to our session one, which is all about leadership. And yeah, this is what leadership looks like. We're joined by two members of the Vet Futures Action Group. Hugh Stacey, who I'm sure most of you already know, is Director of Clinical Services at the Pets at Home Vet Group and member of the Vet Futures Action Group. And Chris Tufnell is RCVS Vice President, following very closely on my heels. I hope you'll all be coming to RCVS Day on the 15th of July, when he'll be taking over the reins. And he's Director of Coach House Vets in Berkshire. So over to you both.
Okay, thank you, Bradley. So our brief today, two things really. One was to keep to time. The other was to avoid death by PowerPoint. So we'll see. I've cut down from 45 slides to about 40. So hopefully we've fulfilled that brief. But the plan was we were going to start with some interaction. You were all going to have a little keypad and we were going to do voting and it was going to be on screen. We've been beaten by the technology, unfortunately, so we're going to have to go to the old school method of raising hands. So that's going to make the first slide, which was going to be to test the technology. This is going to be to test that all of your arms work, okay? So quick test, going forwards, why are we here today? So 4 options. Some there for the students, some there for Yeah, so for the employees. So hands up for option A, we're here for the Vet Future Summit. Outstanding. Votes for B. Yay. And here's the student answer, free food. Anyone here for that? That's me. Finally, to resit my finals. You're lucky, Jess. It's, yeah. You avoided that one. Okay, good. Technology's working in its own way. There we go. So I'll get to the point in a minute. So first question, talking about leadership, what is leadership? You know, we could be here for hours debating what this is, what it isn't, different ways of looking at it. Like everything, you know, when you get away from our world of hard science, actually there's no one answer, there's 17 different answers that people have put together. So this is going to be like, you've all seen Have I Got News For You, yeah? And they have the odd one out round. There's 4 pictures up on screen, and you know, one of them doesn't fit, and you've got to figure out which one it is. So that's the game we're going to play now, and where you were going to have buttons, but you're going to have arms instead. So we've got 4 choices. So the first one, we have an assistant veterinary surgeon, option A. Option B, we have a student veterinary nurse. Option C is Kusasi. He's an adult male orangutan. Option D is Dr. Bradley Viner, president of the Royal College. So, which of these is not a leader? Think carefully. So hands up for option A, veterinary assistant. Option B, student veterinary nurse. Okay. Option C, Kusasi, the adult male orangutan. Yeah, okay. You just don't like redheads, do you? That's the problem. No, yeah. And then votes for Bradley. Okay. Bradley told me beforehand, anyone voted for him, they can leave now. Hand in your MRCVS at the door, okay, as you go. So, which is not a leader? Sadly, it's Kusasi. For those of you that know, orangutans, they don't really have a social structure, they have a semi-solitary existence. The male orangutan has his territory that he roams around looking for women. He's not really a leader, he's more of an individual. Everyone else there, in their own way, is a leader, and this is what leadership is. It's a behaviour. It's not about qualifications, experience, titles, gold chains. It's none of those things, not even impressive cheek pads. That's Kusasi I'm talking about. It is about behaviours. Everyone can act as a leader in the right context with the right skill set. And this is a concept called distributed leadership. Gets away from the concept it's about your training and your heritage or your position or your title. The elements of leadership, this is something, there's been a lot of work done looking at leadership in the clinical context. The NHS has a whole leadership academy, does huge amounts of work on this. They've done a lot of research, a lot of thinking on this, a lot of evolutions of this kind of thinking. And they've distilled it into the elements of leadership. And it's about these three points here, which hopefully you can read with the angles. Giving a clear sense of purpose and contribution to those around you, motivating teams and individuals to work effectively, and ultimately focusing on improving system performance. Interestingly, the NHS, for being a service body as it is, you know, the giant organisation it is, they've built their leadership thinking out of something that comes from business. It's called the customer service profit chain. And this really says, if you have effective leadership, gives you a good employee experience, good employee engagement. If you take care of them, then you get a good customer experience and customer loyalty. Ultimately, profitability and growth. This is the foundation of how the NHS thinks about this. This is something you'll see, you know, in other words, you know, a quote here from somebody who's done quite well out of giving good customer service, done very well for himself. Clients do not come first, employees come first. If you take care of your employees, they will take care of the clients. So it sounds good, it looks like a good soundbite. We've you know, obviously seen it work in the business sector very well, but does it really work in our world, in the clinical environment? And again, let's look to the NHS. They've done some work on this. So they're looking at it in colleague engagement of their people. And they looked at some metrics, and a quite important metric, patient mortality. Just look at the end columns there, overall engagement. So overall engagement of the team, standard mortality rate, 5% lower when the team's got a high level of engagement. 5%, that's significant. They also looked at absenteeism. Absenteeism lower with an engaged team, with a well-led team. And they also looked at, with overall engagement, the quality of the service they provide, so the quality of the clinical service, and interestingly as well, the quality of the financial performance. So, coming from the NHS, there was some comprehensive work, good evidence that effective leadership has real benefits to the service, the environment, the colleague experience. They've taken all of this research and they have distilled it into what they call a healthcare leadership model. If you go to the NHS Leadership Academy, this is the foundation for the courses they have and the work that they do. And you can see the benefits of this. You can see how this could benefit the profession if we had wider engagement with this. So this is why it's the recommendation of the group that we develop an online leadership course based on this as a foundation to take these skills, to take this thinking across the professions and make it freely available to vets, to nurses and to students. So I'm now going to hand over to Chris.
Thanks, Hugh. Jess, as a fellow imposter syndrome sufferer, I can tell you that you don't get over it very easily. And 11 days before I become president of the RCVS, I'm suffering from it heavily today. Now, my job was to try and get out of the audience some examples of everyday leadership. And so there will be a roving mic. And if you've got an example of everyday leadership, then please put your hand up and hopefully somebody will find you. But I just thought, I've been looking at all sorts of information since Hugh and I were tasked with this group. And I thought this quote from Patricia Garcia from Peru was quite a nice encapsulation of what we mean by everyday leadership. A leader is a very special person that can touch the heart of whoever works with him or her and can let ordinary people together do extraordinary things. Now, my example of everyday leadership, which I'm hoping is going to get a few hands up, was from 4 weeks into practice. And you'll have these painful moments, and they do continue. I was discharging a dog which had been in for a routine castration, and I was with a very experienced nurse. She wasn't the head nurse. She was a lovely nurse and very experienced. She particularly lovely in the light of what you hear she did. I was just cutting the catheter out of the dog and inadvertently managed to cut a big slice into the dog. Now, the oh shit going on in my mind wasn't going to help me communicate to the client. It certainly wasn't going to help the dog. And the level of leadership that experienced nurse showed in effectively taking my hand and guiding me through that experience and how to go through to the clients who were outside waiting for their lovely dog to come through and explain that I had actually injured their dog in trying to discharge it and that I was now going to have to go back in and put a couple of sutures in and it was going to come out with a bandage was huge. And it didn't just stop at that moment either. She didn't just hold my hand through then. She kept my confidence for the next week or 10 days or whatever it took for me to get over that disaster in my mind. So it's that sort of thing that we're interested in. And it's that sort of leadership which, possibly because a lot of us suffer from imposter syndrome, we fail to recognise that we have in amongst us. It's going to take a great deal of it to put these actions into play, and that's one of the reasons that all of you guys are here, not just to hear what we say, aren't the RCVS and BVA doing a lovely job, but actually to pick up some of these things and run with them. So we've got about a minute left. Has anybody, I haven't seen a hand go up, but has anybody got an example that they'd like to share with us? Stuart, what was your first week in practice like?
Disaster.
Did you have some leaders picking you up? Where's the mic? Have we lost the mic? Oh, it's in the back.
So this is not planned.
No, it is not a plant.
So my second day of practice, and I have spent a very short amount of time in practice, believe me, I had to go out and I had to replace a calf bed, so a prolapsed uterus in a beef kennel, somewhere up in Aberdeenshire. And as I was there, a second cow put out her uterus as well. So it's not the easiest of jobs in the world, particularly if you don't know what you're doing, as I didn't. But anyway, I got on with it and as best I could. Anyway, about 2.5 hours later, after the third one had happened, there was a mineral imbalance going on. As I left the farm, I saw that my boss, my new boss, was parked about a mile down the road in a farm lorry. He, to this day, does not know that I saw him there. He'd driven up, he'd sat there, he let me get on with it, and for me that was leadership of the most gentle and nurturing kind. They're prepared to pick up and help if required, but not there to impose any form of toe tramping or anything like that. And I will never forget that.
Thank you. We have only got room for one more because we're going to try and keep to time. But anybody else who's got examples, please let us have them because they're inspiring.
My example is actually the opposite. I was a farmer's son. I was always going to be a farm vet, and I went into farm practice, and I wouldn't say where or who. But my first boss was a war hero. He was a veterinary legend in the part of the world he was in, but he was no leader. And consequently, I stopped doing farm practice after about 2 years, and I never went back to it because I was terrified by the end of 2 years. So it's critically important that leadership's present in the early stages, so it's life-changing for them.
Brilliant.
Can I just say quickly that in my experience, leadership is about, I do it every day in every consultation. I'm there in the room with the client and the patient, and between the three of us, we have to help solve the problem that's there, and I think that requires a degree of leadership. So I think that actually most of us do leadership a lot all the time. As an example of bad leadership, I think you only have to look around at the current debacle with Tony Blair and David Cameron. And also the EU for not actually emphasising what they do and how well they do something. And so by keeping your light under a bushel, that can end up you being a bad leader.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much indeed to Chris and to Hugh. I'm sure that's That was, of course, just a little taster of the work that's been going on leadership and what our plans are. But do read about that work stream in the booklet that you've got, and tweet your comments, share them with us, and let's take it on from there. So, time to move on. Education. It's obviously vital to the future of the veterinary profession, and not surprisingly it runs through many of the themes that came out in our Vet Futures report, and we've tried to distill those down now into some work streams. So the next session that we have is about the outcomes specifically for graduates, and we're joined by two members of the Vet Futures Action Group, Liz Mossop, come on up, Liz. Liz is Associate Professor of Veterinary Education and Sub-Dean for Teaching, Learning and Assessment at the School of Veterinary Medicine and Science at the University of Nottingham, and Helen Diffie. Helen is Senior Vice President of the Association of Veterinary Students UK and Ireland, and has recently completed her veterinary studies here at the RVC, having intercalated in global health as Imperial College.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's lovely to be here. And Helen and I have the pleasure of talking to you all about the education theme within the Vet Futures report and the ambitions. We like to think we had the hardest job of everybody in the group because, as you will see from the slide that I'm going to put up next, education was very much a cross-cutting theme throughout all the ambitions within the original report. So we had the very tricky job of pulling some of these out, having a think about them, letting the rest of the action group say what they thought as well, obviously talking to lots of different stakeholders and coming up with some ideas and some plans for future actions around this area. So it was difficult, but hopefully we've achieved something. And I have to say what a pleasure it was working with students as ever, very rewarding, and hopefully we've come up with some good answers, maybe, potentially. We also, along the way, came up with some very sort of good outcomes as well, in that we established the fact that, as we all suspect, our modern veterinary education is doing very well in the UK. We are producing excellent graduates. We think we're doing a good job. And what this is about is just taking us on to the next step. And in order to do that, we thought we'd do a very little mini potted history of veterinary education. As we've already heard today, we are standing in a place that is steeped in the history of veterinary education. So we're going to just pull on a few of those themes and talk about the fact that we are very good at evolving and changing and moving on as education has changed over the years. So we've put this picture up to start with because, of course, the veterinary profession as a whole, the impetus for us all, for the first veterinary school in France was the great rinderpest outbreaks, which caused, of course, the death of millions of cattle in Europe and in the UK eventually. And this led to the establishment of the veterinary profession. We suddenly realised it was a cultural, a society challenge. We realised we needed to draw together and become a profession in our own right. So a great example of us responding to a challenge and veterinary education beginning. Hopefully, these days we are already a very well established and organised profession, and we would be ready for such a thing if it ever happened again. And of course, the foot and mouth outbreaks that we had in 2001 and after that, I was a 2000 graduate, so I was very aware of that happening. I wasn't involved in the outbreak, but I stayed in mixed practice in Lincolnshire waiting for it to hit us. Luckily, it never did. But a great example of how the profession responded, and the education we provided for our graduates meant that many of my peers were up there and assisting in that outbreak.
The formalisation of veterinary education was initiated here at the RVC with the establishment of the first veterinary school in 1791. Here's the picture of it in 1825. As you can see, Camden is actually a village surrounded by fields, a bit different now. Apparently, I've been told that the first graduates were a bit rubbish until someone called William Dick came along. I'm not sure how true that is. There were many challenges associated with being a vet student in those days, not least the fact that the gates were locked at 7 p.m. I kind of worry what kind of life they had, and I know that would not go down well these days. The curriculum is very farm and equine focused, and a lack of regulation led to numerous vet schools across the country with a wide range of graduate abilities cropping up. It was not till the Royal Charter in 1844 when graduates could be regulated by taking one exam to become an MRCVS.
Okay, so we're going to do a bit of a fast forward. I told you it was a very quick history. We're now in the 1970s, we think, or the 1960s. And by this time, we now have 6 very well-established vet schools in the UK. And I'd like you to guess now and tell me who you think this might be. Showing off his great equitational skills. Apparently, this photograph was taken in 1976, and this is our esteemed president.
Who's the guy behind?
Sorry, Bradley. So we're now in the 70s. We have what we know as the formalised education system today. And of course, the curricula are very much aligned to the requirements of what was going on in society at the time. I'm not sure much backwards horse riding was necessary. But post the Loveday reports, pre and post-war, it was, of course, again, very farm and equine focused and became into existence this sort of pre-clinical and clinical structure that we know today. There was, at the same time, lots of investments in infrastructure because the universities took over the delivery of the veterinary degrees and, of course, staffing as well. One thing, however, that Loveday got very wrong in his reports was thinking about the demographics of our profession. So I'm going to read you a little quote now from one of the reports. The veterinary student is more likely to be successful if he comes from the farm or is the son of a practicing veterinary surgeon than if he is town bred. Note the he. We could not justify expenditure of public money on the training of women for work amongst cats and dogs. The number of women admitted by the veterinary schools should be small. This was 1938, so how times changed, and he was indeed really rather wrong on that report. The irony of this statement is very clear for us all standing here today looking to the future of veterinary education.
So step change was the move to competency-based curricula. All UK schools now teach to the RCVS Day 1 competencies. These have been revised several times, and most recently in 2013. UK graduates are some of the best in the world. This is great news and something we should celebrate. Our curricula are modern, innovative, and include topics such as ethical and clinical reasoning, business skills, and reflective practice. However, as we start to think about the vet, or many types of vets of the future, we must again challenge ourselves as a profession to keep developing our approach to education and the diversity of our curricula to ensure our graduates have the skills and abilities to fulfil the roles of the 21st century vets.
So, what will the vet of 2030 look like? The evolution, as Helen has already mentioned, needs to continue. We need to continue to think about what vets do we need to develop and what skills do we need to have within our curricula in order to maintain our position as a world leader in producing the right veterinary product for the range of careers available. In order to do this, we're proposing, as one of the outcomes of the Vet Futures Action Group, to look to 2030, do a bit of crystal ball gazing and work out what vets will be doing then and how we're going to educate our students to make sure they can achieve these outcomes. We've asked some of the students who are here today to give us their views on this, and in a minute Helena's going to ask them to talk to this.
In line with thinking about the future roles of the vet professionals, we need to review the Day 1 competencies and ensure they provide opportunity for graduates to follow a wide range of careers. But as well as broadening the competencies to encourage career satisfaction and a wider role in society of the veterinary profession, the curricula needs to be more flexible in providing students more choice and freedom in their education in order to boost well-being, another major theme of the project. And the review of EMS is much about this too. The reviews of EMS and the curricula must be joined up. They must be consultative and engaging, and they must involve student leadership.
So along this theme of flexibility and diversity, the challenging issue of tracking also needs to be looked at in a lot more depth. We all have different views on this, we all have different opinions on it, depending on where we are as a stakeholder, and this is something that this review will need to encompass.
Okay, so finally, we'd like to just involve some of the other students that I know there are lurking in the audience today. I will add that I am actually still a student. I've got another year to go here at RBC. Don't know where Bradley got his information from. So I just want to ask if anyone has any thoughts on what they think about the future of veterinary education here in the room today. I know there's some of you here.
We know your students are here and they have something to say.
Please put your hand up. There.
I do appreciate learning all the species and trying to know everything, but tracking, having the choice in your final few years to maybe specialise in an area where you think your career is heading, I think it would be helpful for vet students to have their career choices already made.
I think that as much as we are vets of all species when we graduate, though some of us will never actually treat a cow or a horse or maybe a cat again after final year, all of us go into business, and I think that a focus needs to be put on the business education throughout our time at vet school, so that when we graduate we're not sort of left flipping in that aspect, because as much as we choose which species we want to do, every single one of us will be involved in the business side of things.
Hello, I'm Rosalie. I'm the old ABS rep for Nottingham, and during my time in Nottingham I've been lucky enough to get involved in quite a lot of student welfare and to a certain extent mental health in vet students. And I think one of the main failings our veterinary education has is teaching students to cope with general life and mental health issues, and how we can deal with that kind of thing in practice and at vet school. We do get some mental health education, but it mostly consists of eat well, sleep well, exercise. And believe me, you won't meet a bunch of people at vet school who eat better, exercise more, and are still quite unhappy. And I think perhaps we need to tailor the education we, as vet students, get away from perhaps what the rest of the population need. Because we're a bit different, our needs are a bit different. We're all perfectionists, and perhaps we need to be teaching vet students not to be perfectionists, and perhaps that sometimes good enough is good enough. And we can have fun, and you don't have to always be serious. And mental health is really important, and we need to include it in our education perhaps a bit more.
Okay, so as a first year vet student, personally I see promoting the wider roles in the profession and to the future vets and the public as a really important action plan, mostly just to help encourage diversification and encourage sort of the recruitment of different sorts of vets for the future as well.
I think we've got one more at the back there. Yeah, to your left.
Hiya, I'm not technically a student, I am first year qualified now, but I'm qualified again. And I think that it is important for students to be supported through not just their student years, but in those first couple of years. It's a big part of your life, first starting off as a qualified vet or BN, and it needs support. It needs support from not just the student side, but from the qualified as well.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm from University of Bristol and I'm in final year. I think my thoughts would be mainly about how we're prepared for the future. So we're living in a globalised world now, and I think more contact time should be spent on One Health and learning about the global burden of disease, and having a mindset which is a global perspective rather than just being focused on UK problems and first opinion, promoting other career paths instead of just focusing on traditional norms.
Have we got everyone? Any more for any more?
Great. Well, thank you to all of those students who've just spoken out. Your words are very, very powerful, and I hope everyone takes in what you have to say. And I'm very glad that what we have said is definitely reflected in your own feelings. And I think that's it from us. And back to Bradley.
Thank you very much. And of course, Vet Futures is all about looking to the future and crystal ball gazing. So we're that confident that Helen's going to be graduating next year. That's what the crystal ball told us. So the good news is that we're going to give you a break. The bad news is that we expect you to do some work during the break. I'd like every one of you to find somebody that you don't know, that you haven't met before today, and I don't believe that there's anybody here who knows everybody else in the room. And I want you to speak to that person, walk up to them, speak to them, and find out 4 things. I want to find out their name. I want to find out what they do. I want you to find out what their major concern is about the future of the veterinary profession. And I want you to find out what their major ambition is.